does Keir Starmer have any choice at all in the current situation other than to do what he appears to be doing, a sort of preemptive offer of lower tariff, lower taxes, what do you want? You tell me what you want, and I'll do it.
Trump is a bully, and bullies only respect strength.
So what does that look like?
He hits us with 20%. We hit him with 50%.
But that means that you have to pay a 50% tariff on everything you're buying that's come into this country from the United States of America. We're too small to matter.
Then we talk to Europe. We all work together.
We can't, can we? Because we're not in the single market.
Mate, I know. I didn't.
I'm not. I mean, the frustration is real. I would love to think that telling him to grow a pair is a meaningful contribution to the conversation, but I don't think it is. I'd love to hear the substance, the detail of what it is that he can do differently. I hate this headline. I hate the idea, not just that it is bending the knee, as it were, but also that it's bending the knee to the major US technology companies who are in many ways responsible for so many of the problems that we face. But what other choice does he have?
But we're not taxing them, James.
But he's offering tax cuts in order to avoid the tariffs. I mean, you say stick 50 on. That doesn't work. You know that. What would work? What would we have? What heft do we have that would actually make him go, they can hurt us more than we can hurt them? It's just not true. It's not true in any circumstances. It's not true on any level.
No, James, I'm not wanting an argument. I just think, Trump's a narcissist. We all. I think most people would agree with that. And he's out of the game. He's doing things that no one else has ever done before. But what else can we do?
Bend over. Assume the position.
No, we're Great Britain, James. We don't bend over.
Well, we do, actually.
We kneel to our sovereign and my mother.
And my mother, did you say? I completely agree with that.
Like the previous caller just said there, he is a bully, but we don't need to leave this decision to Starmer or any other politician. We can make decisions ourselves. Money talks. We just stop buying American goods where we can. And you might, just like you just did, let's say to the last caller, we're too small to make a difference. Well, rather than looking at doing things through politicians and on a European basis, somebody just needs to start a movement like that young teenager did with the environment. Let's stop buying American goods, get off Twitter, don't buy Tesla, don't use Amazon, and they would soon start coming around. And then you can forget about tariffs. It doesn't matter. We wouldn't be paying a 25% tariff because we wouldn't be buying the goods.
I'll tell you what, Tim, I'd vote for you. I love this. And I saw it yesterday from a sort of august economist suggesting that we're going to have to resurrect. When was Buy British last a big thing? Can you remember? When were the slogans and posters?
It was a long time ago.
It feels like and obviously we don't have the manufacturing base that we have. And I think I did a phone-in a slightly mischievous fashion a few years ago. And I said, if you really did want to buy British, what would you buy? Where would you go? And there wasn't a lot of choice there, but we could certainly do a hell of a lot more.
We are not constrained like politicians are. For them to turn around and say, like, buy British, you would probably start another trade war or something else. But if individuals make the decisions themselves to stop purchasing, I've just come back from America on holiday, and we said we won't go back to America, in the foreseeable future again.
Most obviously it's going to be Teslas and then just buying British. And I wonder how feasible that is. I like this, and it does take the responsibility away from Downing Street and put it back in the hands of ordinary people. But I'm going to steer you, if I may, back to Downing Street and ask, while we do what you describe in an ideal world, what should the Prime Minister be doing?
I think he should be doing what he's doing right now. I honestly hope that he's not a stupid person. He knows that when push comes to shove, he's going to have to take some action down the road. And of course, that hasn't happened. It hasn't come to that point yet. But when that point comes, I hope he does come back strong.
And what does that look like, do you think?
Well, it does mean reciprocal tariffs. It does mean, as much as it hurts, that's what you've got to do. Or look at it the other way. What's the alternative?
What is I've told you what the alternative. The alternative is just to keep asking how high. Is that high enough, Mr. President? No, it's not. Jump higher, 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 higher. And you know that's what he's like, right? You see how when he deals with people like Marco Rubio, he derives the only pleasure in his life comes from breaking things and hurting people.
Yeah. Yeah, but he can only do that if you allow him to do it.
I like your attitude. It's cheered me up. In fact, I'm going to adopt it. I'd struggle without Amazon, I think, but you're going to have to try, aren't you?
Going to have to try
on some level. The problem is, that's why Greta Thunberg is such a good example. It's hard to imagine making much of an impact, but she can then become an inspiration to everybody. What are they called? Micro actions, millions, billions of micro actions. What do they add up to? Very, very, very big action. Be more Tim, eh? We could all be more Tim. Does it matter? There's probably another topic. There's probably an entire conversation in that. Can we buy British? What does backing Britain look like? This guy says Barbarella has inspired me to take one more small step this week. I will move my long Amazon book wish list to Waterstones. Everyone should make a similar pledge. And I have to acknowledge immediately at this point that it costs more money sometimes to do the right thing as opposed to do the reasonable thing, and there's a reason why we generally look at the price of things before we buy them. So it will cost money to buy British, but I tell you what, Tim has touched an awful lot of people with that. This guy is correct. Buy British and Ukrainian and Taiwanese and Canadian, says Ian in Hertfordshire. We do what we can do. Simple changes. New laws, perhaps, that every product needs to display where it came from on its packaging, and every online website must allow users to filter by source, country, or where imported from. I mean, the phrase global trade war is so huge that you begin to wonder where you even start nibbling at the edges of it. But I think Tim's done well there.
The most effective thing to do in terms of our own economy is to do nothing in retaliation.
Are you Welsh? Are you Welsh as well?
Oh, yeah.
It's the takeover. It's finally happening. The show is finally being taken over by the Welsh today. And my God, it's about time too. Go on, tell me more. Tell me more about doing nothing. Something which I am actually quite good at, doing nothing. I just rarely get the opportunity to prove it these days. What do you mean? Tell me more.
Well, politically, the strong thing to do is, well, you've put these tariffs on us, we need to put tariffs on you. But economically, as everybody's been laughing at, all the economic literates have been laughing at Trump, you're punishing yourself because tariffs punish both sides. The concept of a trade war is a nonsense because when you're attacking the other side, you're also attacking yourself. So do you want to double the impact by
But that's capitulation.
Giving the image?
That's capitulation.
Well, not if the narrative's right. Not if you turn around and say, feel free to punish your own people. Yeah, sure, you're punishing us, but you're punishing your own people too. But we're not going to do that.
Oh, this is good stuff, isn't it? This
economically, it makes no sense. I mean, Henry George was writing about this 2 centuries ago, about the futility. If you forget that one is a seller, one is a buyer, one is being punished, one isn't. When you stop a trade, both sides. It's what you say about Brexit. You're shooting yourself in the foot by imposing tariffs. But then if you're prepared to stand up and say, actually, you're wrong about them in the first place, we know better. This economics says, sure, it's going to hurt us. It's equally going to hurt you. But if the rest of the world, Canada, if the rest of the world just turned around and said, feel free, fill your boots, we're not going to do it. Of course it's going to hurt us. But it's going to hurt you more because you're doing it to everybody.
So it will spool out.
We can trade with everyone else.
So what you mean is you sit it out. It's not a capitulation. You just wait for the project to fall apart. From his side of the Atlantic. Because he has to keep explaining to American voters why they're paying 20% tariffs on everything and we're not.
Yeah, and well, we help explain to the American people as well when we can get through to them that we're not punishing you. We're not punishing the American people. We're not punishing. We're only taking our side of the hurt of the tariffs he's imposing, and you're having to take your side of the hurt.
So you see Starmer's approach then as being, because I mean the bad news for you is that you're in Germany and the EU is set to retaliate. Ursula von der Leyen has made it clear that they have a strong plan to retaliate against tariffs, and there's only really one way you can imagine retaliation against tariffs, it's tariffs, whereas Starmer is being a lot more cautious, a lot more pragmatic, and a lot more, I might have said fearful before I started talking to you, but you would say sensible.
Yeah, yes, and I saw that, and about the EU, and I thought it's a shame because you're buying into the narrative that a trade war needs to be fought on both sides, but whereas in fact the first to move is imposing equal harm on both sides. Now, what you can do, and it's limited, is work together with everyone who's not playing those silly games. What you can do is to do what you can to help limit the harm. If there are companies who are looking weak, to see if there is a way of, well, through trade, as the compatriot was saying,
your fellow Welshman,
or by other means, to try and help keep.
So how does it end? Briefly, Gareth, how does it end?
How does it end? I think the Americans, if not Trump, I can't see Trump seeing sense. That's a no-go. But Americans somehow make it clear to the powers there that it's hurting them as much as it's hurting anyone else. It doesn't work.
And that is the lesson of not just Henry George, but the last 8 decades of certainties about the transatlantic relationship, all of which are being immolated as we speak. Well, wow, today's show so far, a tale of two Welshmen, Tim and Gareth combined, coming up with not only answers to the questions that I'm asking, but also slightly upbeat analyses. We can do something, and Starmer isn't necessarily doing the wrong thing by not rattling his economic sabres and threatening the kind of retaliation that Ursula von der Leyen is threatening. And what I like most about Gareth's analysis is that we don't... it almost makes Brexit a very, very, very mild positive, in that we're not going to be part of a collective response from the European Union. We are going to have a degree of independence. It could all, of course, blow up in the Prime Minister and our faces.
I'm thinking a three-pronged attack, personally. I love Tim's idea. It's a great idea in itself. The last caller had a point as well. So why don't we do both of those? And then on top of that, instead of kowtowing to this buffoon, we actually go to our ready-made Commonwealth, get rid of any tariffs or VATs on all of those, so it's a full-on free trade Commonwealth, and then hopefully we'll be able to help each other to succeed while we watch the buffoon lose.
Makes building closer ties with the European Union much harder moving forward. Those kind of trade deals. But you've got 56 member states in the Commonwealth of Nations, and I think some trade was reduced, wasn't it, as a consequence of joining the common market back in the early 1970s. And they are very far away. They're largely much further away than our European...
And I do understand the logistics. However, we have unfortunately been dealt the cards we have due to Brexit, and rather than getting on your knees and kowtowing to this idiot, it would be a much more sensible move to stop making phone calls there and start making phone calls to Canada.
This is where my pendulum swings. I mean, would it really? When you think about the heft that the United States has, getting the United States out of the UK economy would be like getting the eggs out of a baked cake. And Starmer, ever the pragmatist, if we use words like kowtowing or bending the knee or prostrating himself, we create a very negative image. If we use words like making the best of a bad lot or negotiating or trying to minimize damage, then you can make exactly the same tactics sound more positive. Does he really? Go on.
You're making a smart point as well, and so why don't we do all four?
Yeah.
There's no law that says that we can't sort of appease the idiot, contact our Commonwealth. If that's how you win, you don't win from hitting on one front, do you? You never win a war from one front. You win a situation by coming at it from all sides.
And doing everything you can.
Exactly.
Makes communications important again, the area on which almost everybody agrees that the current government is failing miserably. It makes communications really important. And there's only so much you can tell the people, especially if you're undertaking a kind of, not cloak and dagger necessarily, but a 3D chess approach to it, while trying to minimise the need for Trump and simultaneously accommodating his bullying, accommodating his appetite.